Mr. Sweeney has appeared in a string of remarkable films, some of which Jerry just mentioned, like Gardens of Stone, 8 Men Out, The Cutting Edge, Fire in the Sky, Memphis Belle, and Lonesome Dove. His television work includes beloved series like Once and Again, House, and Jericho. Now this exceptional actor also takes on the role of co-writer, producer, and director of a fantastic new film titled Two Tickets to Paradise, which tells the story of 3 longtime friends who strive to reclaim the promise and the vibrancy of their youth. The film, which is now available on DVD, features an exceptional cast, really exceptional, including John McGinley, Moira Kelly, and Ed Harris, and it has garnered awards at some of the most renowned film festivals in the country. We are tremendously pleased to welcome Mr. DB Sweeney to Movie Geeks United. Mr. Sweeney, hello.
I'm great. Thank you, guys. Thanks so much for having me on.
Oh, thank you for being on.
Great pleasure to have you here. I enjoyed your movie very much, and I can't wait to discuss it with you. But tell me, first of all, when the first notion of becoming an actor struck you, who were your initial inspirations growing up?
You know, I did a play in high school, sort of on a dare. It wasn't really anything I was serious. It was like something you do your senior year of high school, and yeah. I enjoyed it, but I never really thought it was going to lead to anything. And then I went off to college with ambitions of being a professional baseball player, and I injured my knee, and it became pretty clear to me that that wasn't going to pan out. So I moved back to New York and started to pursue acting pretty seriously. And I studied at New York University and became a member of the Actors Studio and did a whole host of plays in New York and elsewhere. And so you know, I got into it fairly young, but it was not like some kind of childhood dream.
Now you were at NYU and the Actors Studio. This would have been 82 or 83?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I graduated NYU in '84, and I became a member of the Actors Studio a couple of years after that. And you know, I just kept doing theater, and I continue to do theater to this day. And some of my favorite actors are guys who can go back and forth from theater to films. You know, like for example, Peter Gallagher, I think, is one of the great actors. Yeah. You know, in both media. And you know, there's a bunch of guys that tend to, you know, are able to go back and forth. Kevin Spacey is a great actor on stage, and so you know, so those are some of my they're not exactly my peers, I guess, because they're you know, Kevin Spacey's Oscar-winning guy, you know, so I don't want to, you know, but you know, these are some of the guys of my generation or near my generation that I've admired the way they go back and forth.
Oh, I absolutely admire it too, and you know, that's one of the things. My personal creative idol is Pacino, and he always goes back and forth from film to stage, I find, and that's the sign of somebody that truly loves their craft. I mean, has a real passion for it. Tell me what the stage gives you that film performance does not.
Well, you know, nobody you know dies or anything, so it's not like a life or death thing, but you know, you're working without a net, and in the sense that you can't, you know, call cut and say take two, and you have the audience right there in front of you, and the audience is often, they can't really articulate exactly what it is that's working or not working, but they know when it's working. So even though they can't tell you at the intermission why it's good, they know it's good, and there's something about that sort of barometer, that live barometer of what you're trying to do and whether or not it's working. That's very exciting, and it's scary, you know, because as often as not, you're in a situation where either the play or the scene or the production is not right, and the audience is uncomfortable, and you're out there, you just feel naked. So it's very exhilarating and terrifying when it doesn't work.
Yeah. Yeah, I bet. But from your first big gig it was a big role on Broadway, wasn't it? Even before.
It wasn't a big role. It was an interesting part. It was Kane Mutiny Court Martial was the play, and I played basically the order, you know, the bailiff kind of, you know, the guy who's the sergeant at arms. So I sat on the stage for the whole play, and I got to watch every night for 2 months all these other actors and what they were doing every second of the play. And I started understudying all the roles in the play because you could get an extra $10 a week for every part that you were checked off as the understudy for. And by the end of the run, I was understudying 6 or 7 roles, and I got to go on the last week in one of these roles, and it's kind of like out of a Hollywood fable. But an agent from the William Morris Agency was there, and he said, I think you're going to be a big star, and I want to sign you. And so I was kind of off and running.
Oh wow, that's the dream right there. But you hooked up with Coppola. You had a major role in Gardens of Stone fairly early in your career. How did that opportunity come about?
There's a casting director called Fred Roos who cast The Godfather and a whole bunch of other. He's the guy who fought for Pacino in Godfather, and among other great people that he discovered. I met him earlier that year. This is 1986 for a movie called 7 Minutes in Heaven or 3 Minutes in Heaven. I don't know what it was. About a baseball player and two teenage girls. And Fred thought I was perfect for that part, and he couldn't convince this director to hire me. And he was really frustrated with her that she wouldn't go for it, considering that he's the guy who he is in the world of casting, that this new director wouldn't listen to him. So maybe just to prove her wrong, I think he kept my picture near the top of his stack and brought me right in to meet Francis Coppola a few months later. And Francis was immediately very responsive to me, and I felt like, wow, I might actually be in this movie. And at that time, I'd been in one other movie called Fire with Fire, which I was like the sixth guy on the right, and it was fun to run around the woods in Vancouver in the summer, but it wasn't a principal role. And so I figured that the way this would go is that I'd have a few auditions for this leading role in the Coppola movie, and then they'd pick somebody more famous to play the part, and I'd be out in the cold. So I started. In my callbacks, I started lobbying Francis to let me read for some of the smaller parts in the movie, and he was very amused by that, and he would let me do it. And I never really seriously thought that I would get the leading role, but I got it, and it changed everything because even before the movie came out, people were calling to offer me movies, and the fact that Coppola hires you, it's sort of like you're given the stamp of approval by one of the best.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's a calling card right there. I hear that his sets are very familial. It's just one big family. Did you experience it like that?
Yeah, he likes to. We had for example, the prop masters. This guy Doug Madison and his son was his assistant, and very often the production designer was Dean Tavaleris, and then the set designer was Alex Tavaleris. So he likes to have that environment of family around, and tragically his son was killed during the filming of the movie, so it became a very sad set. But so having family there at that time was, I think, especially important to him.
Yeah. I got to ask you about the cutting edge, because I'm sure I'm not alone. I know I'm not alone. I've watched this great film many times, and just the other week I visited my father, and it was on TV, and we ended up just being transfixed by it. We just enjoyed it so much. Is this the film that people generally approach you most about than any other that you've done?
It seems like I'd say more than half the time it's a cutting edge, and then people will also say, Fire in the Sky or 8 Men Out.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
So a scattering of the other ones, but yeah, more often than not, it's a cutting edge. And there was a time where if I tripped in an airport, 5 people would yell out "toe pick," and it subsided somewhat, but it's a movie that people love, and I'm very proud of the movie. I think it's difficult to make romantic comedies, first of all, and it's sort of a movie that you could watch with your grandmother. There's no scenes in it that are going to make you uncomfortable, and there's not many movies that are made for all generations anymore. So that part of it, I think, is a testament to the craft with which Tony Gilroy wrote the script. He's now obviously one of the most respected writers in Hollywood, and that was his first script. And and Moira Kelly was terrific in the movie, and she did me the honor of appearing in my movie, 2 Tickets to Paradise, and it was one of those movies where everything just came together, and you could feel like when we were on the set, it was a very difficult shoot because shooting ice skating sequences is very time-consuming and difficult, and there's never enough money, and on any movie set, there's never enough money. But in this case, we were always under a tremendous amount of pressure, and Paul Glazer's wife actually was, Elizabeth Glazer had contracted AIDS. She started the Pediatric AIDS Foundation. So here's another guy who was working with an incredible, family tragedy unfolding every day in front of him. And, so it was, it's difficult under those circumstances sometimes to make a comedy, but everybody pulled together, and Terry O'Quinn was terrific, and Roy Dotrice, who played my coach in the movie, was great. And it just was one of those movies where you just felt like this is going to work.
Do you still skate?
I do. I play hockey at just about every Monday night. I'm actually going to play in a charity game in Toronto on September 5th.
Oh, cool.
And pretty excited about that. There's a rumor that Matt Sundin is going to play, which is kind of exciting since he just left Toronto and he's now a free agent. So that would be a big news item for Canadians anyway.
Oh, that's great. Cutting Edge is just a film. It's just such a pleasant experience to watch. It leaves you with such a good feeling, and much like your film 2 Tickets to Paradise, I found. And I wanted to ask you, we've talked about some of these fantastic collaborators, Coppola and John Sayles, and on and on and on. Did you find that you took a lot from them when you were behind the camera yourself?
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned Coppola and John Sayles because those two guys were very influential on me as a director in the sense of leaving things alone. In other words, one of the things Francis said to me was that the director's job is to get the script in the best possible shape it can be in, either by rewriting it himself or by advising the writers what do you think needs to happen. And then casting is supremely important. And then when you get on the set, your job is to not wreck it. So, in other words, if you've done your job, in getting the script ready, getting the actors ready, getting the people to operate the cameras and be the sound technicians and all the various technicians, you get the best people you possibly can, you pick the locations properly, and then you just let it unfold and let people do their jobs. And I remember he very rarely would direct me, except, he would sit with me very quietly and sort of say, well, that was interesting, the last take, and then he wouldn't say much. He'd sip his espresso, and then he'd say, let's do another one. And that would be his direction. Let's do another one. And it was such a collaborative way of working in a trusting way that you just felt like, oh, you know what? This guy is trusting me not to blow it. And I thought, that's kind of the key to directing. And there's this idea that, there's an expression, you get a performance out of an actor. I've always felt as an actor when directors try to manipulate me or try to evince some kind of a response out of me by saying something in between the takes or something. I've always felt like it's kind of condescending and it's not helpful. And I'm sure that there are directors that work that way that are great that I haven't worked with, but generally speaking, the more a director tells an actor to do or how to do something, the worse a director is, in my view.
Yeah, we hear that time and time again on the show from actors that they prefer direction, just like you said, go again, or louder, softer, just very functional direction. Yeah.
Well, I think you have to be careful, when you say, because actors really want to please, even actors that have, that maybe other people think are difficult on the set. I don't think they wake up in the morning and say, oh, I can't wait to get to the set today so I can wreck this director's scene. In their heart of hearts, they want to do well and they want the movie to be good and they want to please the director and the producers and the writers and everybody. So when the director says something to an actor that he hasn't really considered, it does damage because the actor will try to do it, and then it may end up confusing the scene, or it was not the right direction. So now for 2 or 3 more takes, the actor, being a good person and trying to, do what he's been asked to do, will continue to try and service some part of the scene which maybe wasn't accurate, the note. So I think that when you direct the actors, you should watch several takes and make sure of what you're going to say before you say it, because it's hard to unsay it.
Yeah. Now, in terms of 2 Tickets to Paradise, I want to let everyone know, if you look on your homepage where you're listening to the show now, whether live or on archive, you'll see the cover of the DVD there. If you click that, it'll take you directly to Amazon where you can purchase it. And I highly recommend you do. It's a great time. It's a great film. Tell us a little bit about the story and the inspiration behind it.
Well, this movie started out a long time ago in 2001, fall of 2001, and you guys are in Brooklyn, is that right? Or 718?
It's very complicated. The show number is a Brooklyn number. I'm actually in Florida. Jerry's in Maryland. It's
okay.
The wonders of the internet.
The miracle of the internet.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know. I saw I used to live in Brooklyn, and I used to be a 718 guy, so I thought maybe you guys were there. But I lived in New York most of my life, and I think that September 11th was profound for all Americans, but especially for New Yorkers. And, that fall, friends of mine who were firemen were going to funerals every single day.
That's right.
For months and months on end. And then, they go to the funeral and then they go to the bar at night. So I remember in December sitting in a bar with 2 of my buddies after yet another funeral. And, these guys are going to the bar every night and having too many drinks and then getting up and starting over the next day with the same ritual of mourning and drinking. And, So I said, you guys got to take a night off after, tomorrow. Why don't you go bowling or go to the movies? And the one guy looked at the other guy and goes, movies? Nobody makes movies for us anymore. And I just thought to myself, you know what? It's really true. I'm a guy, approaching 40 at the time, and I'm just thinking there aren't that many movies that I feel like are intended for me. There's stupid movies like popcorn movies aimed at teenage boys, and then there are sort of like Oscar movies where people with English accents, criticize America. And and those kinds of movies all have varying degrees of quality. There's some good popcorn movies and some bad ones, obviously, and the other ones as well. But I didn't feel like anybody was making movies just for sort of like normal American, blue collar people. And once they get past the age of 30, especially. So that was the germ of an idea for me. that I wanted to try and make a movie. The second aspect of it that made me want to do it was that I tended to get pegged as kind of the intense actor early in my career, and I didn't get as many comic roles as I would have liked. And, in movies like The Cutting Edge, where I do get the comic role, I think it works very well. So I was, in an effort to try and overcome that, I was going to write my own part. I wanted to play kind of the goofy part. And that's why that was the initial impetus to make the movie. I had no idea I was going to end up directing and producing it, and those were not my intents, but those things ended up happening because that was the only way to get it done.
Yeah, and you are fantastically funny in this, and so is everyone else. I mean, what a dynamite cast you've assembled for this movie, and also the music that you have in this. You have Springsteen and Dylan, and it's incredible. I mean, I know you were working. You had to have been working on a minimal budget. This is an indie film. How did those opportunities come about for you?
Well, it is an indie budget. Actually, it was my money. I mean, I signed for it with the banks. I put in whatever little money I had, and I had some equity in my house. Living in California, real estate market went crazy in the 90s, and so my house appreciated. And so right before the subprime mortgage crisis started, I had built up some equity in my house, and I borrowed against it to make the movie. So I literally, I put my money where my mouth was. And as far as the actors, I called all my friends. John McGinley's one of my oldest friends. We were at NYU together. And, of course, Moira from The Cutting Edge. Ed Harris and I knew each other from a Broadway tryout we did in 1984 for a play. And we had stayed in touch and played golf from time to time. Mark Moses, MC Gainey, same things. These are just friends of mine that I've either worked with or just known for years and years. So on the acting side, I just picked up the phone and called all my friends, and most of them just said yes, and just said, where do we have to be? And I said, Wilmington, North Carolina, and they were like, oh, wow, 2 airplanes from L.A., okay, I'll do it anyway. And on the music side, I felt like a road trip movie, it really has to have great music, and it can't just be hits. Like, in other words, if you play Stairway to Heaven in a movie, it kind of stops the movie, because most movies aren't as good as Stairway to Heaven. So you start,
That's true.
You start thinking, wow, this song is great, but this movie sucks. So it has to be like.
I thought of it like that, but you're right.
Yeah, it has to be. So I thought I want to get major names, but not their major songs. Like if I played Born to Run in the movie, it would stop the movie. Right. But I knew I wanted that Springsteen energy, and especially that darker Springsteen from Tunnel of Love. So
right.
I had met him at a party in L.A. like 15 years ago or something, 12 years ago, and. And it's one of those parties where everybody else there besides me has been on the cover of Vanity Fair. It's like 50 people, and it's like, if a bomb went off, Hollywood would end the next day. And I'm looking around, and before this can kick me out, because I know that's going to happen any second now when they figure out that, I don't have a $100 million movie. But I'm thinking, I got to go say hi to Springsteen, but I didn't want to be a jerk and waste his time, so I thought about it for like half an hour, like, what do you say to the guy? And, I'm not going to try to shake his hand. Maybe he's got, like, germophobia or something. I don't want to do anything to make him uncomfortable. So I'm thinking about what I can say, and the line I come up with is, hey, Bruce, I'm one of the many wanted to thank you for the music, and just a quick wave and head out. So I did it, and I'm moving away, and he goes, you're the guy in the baseball movie. And, I had done 8 Men Out, and I was like, oh, there is a God. And I made a pretty quick recovery because I was pretty flabbergasted just talking to him for a second. And, he's obviously a big presence in anybody's life of a certain age. And so I said, hey, Bruce, listen, I'll be all right in a minute, but tell me, who makes you like this? And he goes, Bob Dylan. And I said, and luckily I know every Bob Dylan song, so we just talked about Bob Dylan for 40 minutes. Finally, and I kept trying to get him, let him out of the conversation in case I was taking up too much of his time, and he kept continuing it. And so it was a great conversation. And then 14 years later, I just wrote a letter saying, listen, I know you're probably going to say no because I know you don't give anybody songs, but, we met once, and even if you don't give me the song, thanks for being nice to a kid from Long Island, from 10:38 p.m. Pacific time through 11:17 or whatever the exact time was. I remember. And he never even saw the letter. His manager just called him up and said, I got a song request from this guy, DB Sweeney, and for this movie he's directing. And, Springsteen just interrupted her and said, I like that guy, give him whatever he wants.
Well, that's awesome.
So once you have Springsteen doing that, Dire Straits, Bob Dylan, all those other, you can call those record companies and say, well, Springsteen did it, and so it all kind of fell in line, along those, So it was really a gift. The music side was really a gift because the record companies are impossible to deal with. They don't want to give, even when the artist says, I'll give a guy a song for a really good price, the record companies don't want to encourage that, so they try to kill it with their legal departments.
Yeah. Yeah, I would imagine. What a tremendous artist Springsteen is. My God, is what surprised you most about directing?
How fast the day goes. Like when you're an actor, it seems like you're always looking at your watch. Like it takes forever to do the lighting, and you're, the acting part goes fast, but most of the time you're waiting around for the lighting and the set to be ready, and the day feels like the 14 hours that it is. But when you're directing, you get there, somebody puts a cup of coffee in your hand, and you start answering questions and making decisions. Before you know it, 6 hours have gone by. It's lunch. It felt like it was 40 minutes, and then you don't have any time to eat your lunch because you're answering more questions, and then the day is over, and it was 12 and a half, 13 hours, and it just didn't feel like time goes like 3 times as fast. So that was a big surprise to me that, in a good way, because I spent a lot of my time on sets being bored, because you have to stay in standby mode. Mm-hmm. And so that was a big surprise. The other big surprise for me was in post-production, because, for an actor, post-production is you go and you do your ADR, your looping, replace your lines in the places where the soundtrack is damaged, and you replace your lines, and then you go see the premiere. But in editing and doing the sound mixing for a movie, that stuff is where such critical changes take place in the movie, where you really can improve what you had if you know the techniques and so forth. So I mean, that was a big eye opener for me, was how much good you can do in the post production process.
Yeah, and listening to your commentary as well, I watched it through twice so I could hear your commentary as well.
Very kind.
It's all. No. It was a great pleasure to do so. It seems to be entirely about communication. I mean, I heard you telling stories about how you handled some of the scenery that you have in the film, like the cement truck that you use. You bartered 3 cases of cores for 3 takes on the cement truck.
Yeah.
It's hysterical. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, on a big movie, they just, they have that, they pay the cement truck $1,000 and it sits there all day long, and you just do it whenever you want. But I had like a tight little window of opportunity, and with an independent movie, you're always trying to make your movie seem bigger, so it doesn't feel like a little film festival movie. And that was one shot where it was a very important moment, and I really wanted that cement mixer. So I'm talking to the guy. The whole crew is watching me, and the guy's, he's like, I'll give you a case of Bud, a case of Coors Light. And he goes, I need 2 cases. I'll give you a case every take. It's the dumbest negotiation in the history of the world, but I got the cement mixer in my movie, so.
You pushed the right button there. So
yeah.
When you're pulling double, triple duty like you did in this film, are you concerned about one position endangering the quality of work in another area?
Yeah, it's a great question, and like I said, I didn't set out to direct it, and I asked 2 guys to direct it, and they weren't available or not interested, depending on how you want to interpret their answer. But I really I want to do this again in terms of directing myself in a big part. I can understand how Woody Allen or Spike Lee do it, because they sort of play the same guy all the time. It's kind of a stock character. But if you're trying to play somebody different than yourself, it's a kind of a different part of your brain. I don't know about left brain, right brain, whatever, but directing is very much being an executive and making decisions and administering things. And being an actor is, you have to sort of have a sense of play and almost be daydreaming and be irresponsible a little bit in order to have that part of your imagination be activated. So I would not seek to do it again. I know a lot of actors do it because the people putting money up for the movie, in my case it was me, they like it because you save a salary. And, and it's one less person that has to be in the meeting or in the lunch or every other place where it's going to turn into more money in the budget.
Yeah. So you said that you are anxious to direct again, I take it?
I would like to direct again. I would like to not be in it, though.
Right.
Or play a much smaller part. Maybe a movie about kids where I was the dad or something and I'm only in 5 or 6 scenes. Then I feel like I could really focus on the directing and apply all the lessons that I've learned in this process. And I'm very anxious to do it again, and I'm also anxious to just act, and work with really good directors, because you realize that what a hard job it is, and the process of directing made me a much better actor.
Yeah. Now I know that I read an interview with you where you said that a dream play of yours was it Cat on Hot Tin Roof?
That's my favorite play. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have a similar dream film project that you'd love to do? Wow,
that's a great question too. You know what? There's I'm really enamored of the Civil War, and there was they did this movie based on the book The Killer Angels years ago, and I really wanted to be in that, but they took Jeff Daniels for the part that I wanted, and so that was really something where I felt like I think I could really bring something to a movie of that era because I know a lot about the war and the time, and so if somebody came along with a great Civil War era script, that would be something terrific, I think, to do. I love action movies are really my favorite ones, and I really think that we've lost our way in Hollywood in the sense where a summer movie in a sense would be like Bullet with Steve McQueen or The Great Escape with Steve McQueen. And now a summer movie is Spider-Man or Batman, and those movies have their virtues, but they're not really, I don't know, they're pretty superficial in the sense that they're all based on style, and they're not based on great acting as much as I think Heath Ledger did a fine job in the movie, and there's some other good actors in Batman and these other movies as well. It's just that they're relying on other things than the presence of the actor and the physicality of the actor to make it work.
You're speaking our language. We talk about this every week.
Yeah. So you want to go back to like the McQueen era action hero, the early Eastwood film.
Robert Mitchum.
Robert Mitchum is in a class all by himself. That's probably my favorite actor of all time. So, I mean, those were you're not going to. I'm sorry, I hate to say it, we're just not going to get anyone like these guys.
Well, you know what? I feel like if I was given an opportunity to play some of these, I think Russell Crowe is the closest thing we have.
Russell Crowe is excellent, but I mean, I'm all for this. If you can, I mean, obviously you have the writing and directing skills. I think you would be the person to bring back this era.
Well, I'm trying. My next project is an internet TV show. It's called The Opportunist, and hopefully it'll be it's little 5-minute episodes, and it's an action adventure serial. And basically, it's kind of a guy who's on the run in Mexico, and he gets in a series of situations, and he has to use his wits and his fists to get himself out of trouble. And he's a character with a past, but he also has a good heart. So it harkens back to some of those film noir heroes without it being like trying to be a film noir type thing. It's more like like The Fugitive or a little bit borrowing from 24 maybe in the sense that a strong character. And I think Kiefer does a great job on 24. I just find that the show doesn't lean enough on the virtues that we were talking about a few moments ago.
Yeah. Now, I would be remiss. We're going to let you off the hook in just a second. You've been so generous to us.
You've been very generous.
I'd be remiss if I didn't ask about the Spike Lee experience. You mentioned Spike Lee earlier and war films, and here you are in Spike's A Miracle at St. Anna. What was that experience like working with him?
It was great. I've known Spike for a long time. We both started out in the business around the same time, and of course he took a much more meteoric path than I did, and we met as fellow Knick fans, and of course his seats got a lot better than mine. Yeah. So I would see less and less of him. But anyway, we remained friends, and we both our sports fan passion sort of joined us a little bit, and I bumped into him from time to time, and I'd always hoped that I'd be in one of his movies. So when this came along, I was very excited because he's a very compelling director, and and if you're an actor, you need a director that has a personal style and a lot of power on the set because then you get less interference from the people that are going to ruin the movie. And so it was a great experience. I went to Tuscany, Italy for 3 weeks, and I play a colonel who commands this group of Buffalo soldiers, and he believes that the troops should be integrated, and that the black soldier is going to fight just as well as the white soldier, and and it was a great experience. Great to be a part of it. It's a big, sprawling movie. I'm a small part of it in a sense because it's really the story of these 4 African American soldiers getting trapped behind enemy lines. And I don't know how this movie could be 4 hours long if he includes all the scenes, but I don't know how he's going to get it down short. But it's beautiful. I mean, Matty Libatek shot it. He's the guy who shot Iron Man, and he's obviously the cinematographer right now, and it just looks beautiful. We shot the battles in Tuscany right where the actual battles took place.